The Valen cluster waited in silence. Millions of asteroids drifted through space, some as small as houses, others as large as moons. Gravitational anomalies from a dead star twisted space itself, creating invisible currents that pulled at ships like an ocean tide. It was beautiful and deadly, exactly what Colonel Tay needed. The Galactic Defense Alliance fleet filled the cluster. Thousands of ships from 40 different species, positioned according to Tai's battle plan. Heavy cruisers guarded key positions. Fast attack squadrons hid among the asteroids. Electronic warfare ships waited in the shadow of the largest rocks. Fighter carriers held their squadrons ready to launch at a moment's notice. Captain Bora stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the tactical display. Her daughter was out there somewhere flying with Lieutenant June's squadron. She tried not to think about that. Tried to focus on her duty. Colonel Tay moved calmly through the command center, checking systems, speaking quietly to officers. He showed no fear, no doubt, just absolute focus. Director Hana stood beside him, representing the diplomatic corps even in this moment of war. A sensor officer called out, "Sir, long-range sensors detecting mass hyperspace signatures. The swarm is arriving. All across the fleet, alert signals activated. Soldiers moved to battle stations. Pilots climbed into their fighters. Weapon systems powered up. Everyone waited. Then they saw it. The edge of the cluster filled with swarm ships. Hundreds at first, then thousands, then tens of thousands. The tactical display could not show them all. It simply marked the area as saturated with enemy contacts. More ships than anyone had ever seen in one place. Ambassador Kell, watching from the advisory station, whispered in horror, "There are too many. We cannot possibly fight all of them." Tay's voice was steady. "We do not need to fight all of them. We just need to fight smarter. All ships execute Phase 1. Activate asteroid field navigation system. Make them come to us on our terms." The Alliance fleet activated a network of navigation beacons hidden throughout the asteroid field. The beacons created safe paths through the cluster that only Alliance ships could follow. The swarm would have to navigate the dangerous asteroids without guidance. The Krill swarm entered the cluster in massive formation, just as Tay predicted. They tried to maintain their perfect geometric patterns, but the asteroids forced them to break apart. Ships collided with rocks. Gravitational anomalies pulled vessels off course. The swarm's greatest strength, their overwhelming numbers, became a weakness in the confined space. Phase 2. All fast attack squadrons begin hunter operations. Target command nodes only. Hit them and move. Hundreds of small Alliance ships darted out from hiding spots among the asteroids. They struck at swarm command vessels with precise violence, then disappeared back into the rock field before the swarm could respond. It was the same tactic that worked at Vrelnath Prime, but now executed by dozens of species working together. Lieutenant June led a mixed squadron of human and Vrelnath fighters through the chaos. Pilot Bora flew on his wing exactly where she was supposed to be. They found a command node protected by heavy escorts. Target confirmed. All fighters, attack pattern Delta, electronic warfare birds. Jam their communications now. The fighters dove toward the command node while specialized ships blocked the swarm's ability to call for help. Pilot Bora fired her weapons with precision, hitting exactly where June had taught her to aim. The command node's shields collapsed. Human fighters finished it with kinetic missiles. The entire attack took less than a minute. Across the battlefield, similar strikes eliminated command node after command node. The swarm's coordination began to fail. Sections of their fleet became isolated and confused. But the swarm was learning. It adapted its formation, concentrating forces to protect remaining command nodes. The attacks became harder, more dangerous. Alliance ships started taking heavy casualties. Captain Bora watched the tactical display with growing concern. The casualty reports were climbing. Good ships. Good people. Dying to buy time. A damage control officer called out. "Sir, the swarm is concentrating forces at Grid 7. Our defensive line is collapsing. If they break through there, they will reach the core systems." Tay studied the display. His jaw tightened. Everyone on the bridge could see what he was thinking. The defensive line needed reinforcement, but every ship was already engaged. Except one, the flagship itself. Commander Day approached him quietly. "Colonel, I know what you are considering. Let me take the flagship. You are Supreme Commander. The Alliance needs you to coordinate the battle." Tay met his eyes. They had served together for 20 years, been through countless battles. Day was more than a subordinate. He was a friend, Are you certain, Commander? Yes, sir. The swarm's central command nexus is in that area. If we ram it at full speed, the explosion will destroy the nexus and everything around it. The swarm will lose overall coordination. You can win this battle, but only if you are alive to command it. This is my choice. Let me make it. Tay wanted to refuse, wanted to find another way, but he knew Day was right. The Alliance needed coordination more than it needed one ship. He placed his hand on Day's shoulder. It has been an honor serving with you, Commander. The honor was mine, Colonel. Now go. I will buy you the time you need. Tay, Director Hana, and the Essential Command staff transferred to a nearby cruiser. Captain Bora watched the flagship turn toward the swarm concentration. Commander Day's voice came over the fleet communication system one last time. All Alliance forces, this is Commander Day. It has been my privilege to serve alongside you. For Earth, for the Alliance, for everyone we protect. Let's show these machines what it means to have something worth dying for. The flagship accelerated to full speed, its engines burning bright. Swarm ships tried to intercept it, but nothing could stop the massive vessel's momentum. It struck the central command nexus like a meteor. The explosion was visible from across the battlefield. A brilliant flash that turned night to day. When it faded, the command nexus was gone. So was the flagship. So was Commander Day. For a moment, everyone was silent. Then Tay's voice rang out from the new command ship. Commander Day gave us an opportunity. Now we use it. All ships, final assault. Target every confused swarm section. Show them what the Alliance can do when we fight together. The entire Alliance fleet surged forward. The swarm, without its central nexus, could not coordinate a defense. Individual sections fought independently, making them vulnerable to concentrated attacks. Alliance forces systematically eliminated swarm ships section by section, hour by hour. Lieutenant June and Pilot Bora flew through the chaos, destroying swarm fighters and protecting damaged Alliance ships. They worked together perfectly, anticipating each other's moves without needing to speak. Human and Vrelnath fighting as one. 12 hours after the battle began, the last swarm ship was destroyed. The Valen cluster was filled with debris and the floating wreckage of thousands of vessels. But Council space was safe. The swarm was defeated. The cost had been terrible. A third of the Alliance fleet was destroyed or damaged beyond repair. Tens of thousands of soldiers from dozens of species were dead. Captain Bora stood in the memorial ceremony, watching as Colonel Tay honored every fallen warrior. He spoke each name clearly, regardless of which species they belonged to. Human, Vrelnath, Hevron, Erix, all equal in sacrifice. When Tay reached Commander Day's name, his voice cracked slightly. Just for a moment, the unbreakable commander showed his grief. Then he continued, giving Day the same honor as every other fallen soldier. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council held a formal session. Every member species attended. This time there was no fear, no suspicion, only gratitude and respect. Speaker Meln stood at the center of the chamber. By unanimous vote, the Galactic Council officially ends the quarantine of Earth. Humanity is welcomed as a full member of galactic civilization with all rights and privileges. Furthermore, we establish the Combined Military Academy, where all species will train together to defend our shared future. We owe humanity a debt we can never fully repay. Colonel Tay, standing beside Director Hana, bowed respectfully. We did not fight for debt or gratitude, Speaker Mellon. We fought because it was right. Because innocent lives were at stake. That is what humanity will always stand for. Ambassador Kell stepped forward. Colonel Tay is too modest. The humans saved us all. I propose that Captain Bora be named the first director of the Combined Military Academy. She has seen both sides, fought alongside humans, and understands what we need to learn. Who better to lead the next generation? The motion passed immediately. Bora accepted with tears in her eyes. 6 months later, the Combined Military Academy opened on a neutral world at the edge of Council space. The first class of cadets included members from 30 different species. They trained together, ate together, learned together. On the first day, Director Bora stood before the assembled cadets. Beside her stood Lieutenant June and Sergeant Yuna, promoted to instructor positions. She looked at the young faces, seeing hope for the future. You come from different worlds, different species, different cultures, but here you are all the same. You are guardians, protectors of those who cannot protect themselves. The humans taught us that strength without purpose is just violence. Purpose without strength is just hope. But strength combined with purpose. The Galactic Council chamber was more crowded than Captain Bora had ever seen it. Every member species had sent representatives. The viewing galleries were filled with journalists and observers from across council space. Everyone wanted to hear what the humans had to say. Colonel Tay stood at the center of the chamber looking small and alone, surrounded by hundreds of alien beings. Director Hana stood beside him, her diplomatic training keeping her face calm. Captain Bora sat in the Vrelnath delegation area, her hands clenched tight. She could feel the tension in the room like electricity. Speaker Mellon called the session to order. His ancient voice echoed through the chamber. The council recognizes Colonel Tay of Earth. You may present your report on the Battle of Vrelnath Prime. Tay activated a holographic display. Images of the battle appeared in the air above him. Ships fighting, explosions. Victory. Members of the council. High Fleet successfully drove the Krill swarm away from Vrelnath Prime. We destroyed 17 command nodes and eliminated approximately 40% of the swarm force that was present. Vrelnath Prime is safe for now, however. Our intelligence has confirmed what many of you suspected. The force we fought was only a scouting group. The main swarm is approaching council space. It will arrive in approximately 28 days. Worried voices filled the chamber. Tay waited for them to quiet before continuing. The main swarm contains an estimated 1 million ships. No single species has the military strength to face it alone. Not even humanity. But together, if every species contributes their forces and works under unified command, we can win this war. Ambassador Kell of the Hevron Empire stood. He was tall and elegant, his golden skin gleaming under the chamber lights. His voice was filled with skepticism. You speak of unified command, Colonel. I assume you mean human command. You want us to place all our military forces under your control. Why should we trust you? Your species was quarantined for violence. Now you ask us to give you command of the largest military force in galactic history. How do we know you will not simply conquer us instead? Before Tay could respond, Captain Bora stood. Her voice rang out clearly. Ambassador Kell, I can answer that question. I fought alongside the humans at Vrelnath Prime. I watched them risk their lives to save my people. I saw human soldiers take damage to protect Vrelnath fighters they had never met. My own daughter is alive because a human pilot named Lieutenant June put himself between her and the swarm. The humans do not want to conquer us. They want to protect us. There is a difference. Kell looked at her with surprise. He had expected human propaganda, not testimony from a Vrelnath officer. You speak from emotion, Captain, not logic. One battle does not prove anything. Then let me speak from logic. The humans destroyed 17 command nodes in less than 6 hours. The Vrelnath fleet fought the swarm for 3 months and never destroyed a single command node. The Hevron battle groups engaged the swarm 4 times and achieved no significant victories. The humans won in one battle what we could not accomplish in months. That is not emotion, Ambassador. That is fact. Director Hana stepped forward, her voice diplomatic but firm. Ambassador Kell raises valid concerns. Earth does not ask for blind trust. We propose a compromise. Colonel Tay will serve as Supreme Commander of Allied Forces, but each major species will have representatives serving as advisors. Important strategic decisions will be made in consultation with the Advisory Council. Additionally, Earth will share all our military technology and tactical knowledge with Council forces. We hold back nothing. We are partners, not conquerors. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives argued in favor. Others remained suspicious. Speaker Mellon called for order repeatedly. Ambassador Kell sat quietly, his expression thoughtful. Finally, he stood again. I have listened to Captain Bora's testimony. I have reviewed the battle data from Vrelnath Prime. The humans are indeed effective warriors, but effectiveness in battle is not the same as wisdom in leadership. Colonel Tay, I have one question for you. If this council refuses your proposal, if we choose to fight the swarm without unified command, what will humanity do? Tay met his eyes directly. We will fight anyway. We will defend council space to the best of our ability. We will save as many lives as we can. We came here to help, Ambassador Kell, not to demand anything. If you reject unified command, we will be disappointed, but we will not abandon you. That is not who we are. The chamber fell silent. Kell studied Tay for a long moment, then turned to address the council. I came here today prepared to vote against this proposal. I believed the humans were dangerous, that giving them military authority was a mistake. But I have heard Captain Bora's testimony. I have seen the battle data. Most importantly, I have heard Colonel Tay's answer to my question. A conqueror would have threatened us. A tyrant would have demanded obedience. The colonel offered only continued help even if we reject his leadership. That is not the response of someone seeking power. That is the response of someone truly committed to protecting others. He paused, then continued. The Hevron Empire proposes a formal alliance. We accept Director Hana's compromise. Colonel Tay will serve as Supreme Commander with an advisory council, representing all major species. Earth will share technology and tactical knowledge. In return, every council species commits their full military strength to the defense of our civilization. We call this the Galactic Defense Alliance. Speaker Mellon nodded slowly. Ambassador Kell has made a formal proposal. We will vote. All in favor of creating the Galactic Defense Alliance under the terms described? This time there was no hesitation. Hands, claws, and tentacles rose throughout the chamber. The vote was nearly unanimous. Only a handful of the most isolated species abstained. The alliance was formed. 3 days later, military forces from across council space began arriving at designated training facilities. Captain Bora watched from an observation deck as thousands of ships gathered. Hevron cruisers, Vrelnath carriers, Mechanical Union combat platforms, Eric's fighter squadrons, species that had never worked together were now preparing to fight side by side. On the training grounds below, human instructors worked with alien soldiers. A tough human sergeant named Yuna was teaching a mixed group of recruits how to think like Deathworlders. Her voice carried across the field. Listen up. The swarm expects you to fight with honor, with rules, with predictable tactics. Forget all that. We are going to teach you to fight dirty, to adapt, to never give up. The swarm is strong, but we are smarter. Now drop and give me 50 push-ups. Yes, I know your species does not have arms. Figure it out. Humans evolved on a death world by adapting to impossible situations. Today you start learning how. Bora watched the recruits struggle through the exercises. Some were strong, some were weak, but all of them were trying, learning, changing. Lieutenant June approached her, his arm still bandaged from the battle. He looked down at the training grounds with satisfaction. They are learning fast. Sergeant Yuna is tough, but she's a good teacher. In 3 weeks, these recruits will be more dangerous than soldiers who trained for years in the old ways. Bora smiled slightly. My daughter speaks highly of you, Lieutenant. She says you are teaching her to be a better pilot. Your daughter is talented. She just needed to learn to trust her instincts. Vrelnath pilots are trained to follow procedures exactly. Human pilots are trained to improvise. We are teaching her to do both. They stood together in silence, watching the training continue. After a while, June spoke again. Captain, can I ask you something? When you first came to Earth, you were afraid of us. I could see it in your eyes. Are you still afraid? Bora thought carefully before answering. Yes, but now I understand what I am afraid of. I am not afraid you will hurt us. I am afraid of how far you will go to protect us. Humans do not know when to give up. You will fight until you win or until you die. That kind of determination is terrifying. But it is also exactly what we need, June nodded. That is fair. Just remember, Captain, we are not fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for you, for your daughter, for everyone who cannot fight. That is what makes us Deathworlders. Not that we can survive anything, but that we choose to protect others no matter what it costs. Later that night, Colonel Tay called a meeting of the Advisory Council. Representatives from 20 species gathered in the command center. The mood was tense. Everyone knew what was coming. Tay activated the strategic display. A massive red cloud moved toward council space. The main swarm will reach the Valen cluster in 25 days. That location is our best chance for defense. The cluster contains asteroid fields and gravitational anomalies that will disrupt swarm formation. We will position our forces there and force them to fight on our terms. Ambassador Kell studied the display. Even with every ship we can gather, we will be outnumbered badly. What are our chances of success? Tay was quiet for a moment. Honestly, if we fight the way the swarm expects, we will lose. But we are not going to fight that way. We are going to use every advantage we have. Terrain, technology, tactics. Most importantly, we have something the swarm does not have. We have soldiers who choose to fight, who believe in what they are protecting. That gives us a chance. Bora looked around the table at the alien faces. Species that had been strangers weeks ago. Now they were allies, partners, friends. Then let's make the most. The combined fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vrelnath Prime system. Captain Bora stood on the bridge of Colonel Tay's flagship, staring at the tactical display. Her heart broke at what she saw. Her homeworld was surrounded. Thousands of krill swarm ships formed a dark cloud around the blue planet. They moved in perfect geometric patterns like insects in a hive. Harvester vessels descended toward the surface, breaking through the atmosphere to strip away resources. Defense satellites fired desperately, but their weapons barely scratched the swarm's armor. What remained of the Vrelnath defense fleet fought with courage, born of desperation. A dozen ships, maybe less, darting between the swarm vessels like tiny fish attacking sharks. Bora recognized some of the ship signatures: friends, family, people she had trained with. They were dying, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Colonel Tay stood at the command station, perfectly calm. His eyes moved across the displays, analyzing everything. He spoke quietly into his communication system, giving orders to ship captains throughout the fleet. Bora could not understand his calm. Didn't he see how hopeless this was? All ships, battle formation Delta 7. Electronic warfare ships to the front. Carriers prepare fighter launch. Destroyers split into hunter groups Alpha through Echo. We are going to cut off the head of this beast. A young human officer named Lieutenant June worked at the tactical station. He was focused and precise, highlighting targets on the display. When he spoke, his voice was confident. Sir, I have identified 17 probable command nodes. They are using standard swarm coordination patterns. If we eliminate the command nodes, the surrounding vessels will lose organization. Confirmed. Distribute targets to hunter groups. Tell them to hit hard and fast, then break away before the swarm can respond in force. We are not here to fight fair. We are here to win. The human fleet split into smaller groups and accelerated toward the swarm. Bora watched in amazement. Every other species had tried to match the swarm's numbers with their own forces. The humans were doing the opposite. They were dividing into smaller targets. Captain Bora could not stay silent. Colonel, you are splitting your forces. The swarm will overwhelm each group individually. You need to concentrate your firepower. Tay glanced at her, and for a moment she saw something in his eyes. Not anger at being questioned, but understanding. He knew she was afraid. The swarm expects concentrated attacks because that is what everyone does. We are not going to give them what they expect. Watch and learn, Captain. This is how Deathworlders fight. The first hunter group reached its target, a large command vessel surrounded by smaller swarm ships. Electronic warfare systems activated, jamming the swarm's communications. The command node tried to respond, but its orders to the surrounding vessels were scrambled and useless. Human destroyers opened fire with kinetic missiles. The weapons moved so fast they appeared as streaks of light. They hit the command node with devastating force, punching through armor that had resisted every other weapon. The node exploded in a brilliant flash. The swarm vessels around it stopped moving in coordination. They drifted, confused, unable to receive orders. The human ships did not stay to fight the disabled vessels. They accelerated away, already moving toward the next target. Across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Hunter groups struck command nodes, disabled them, and moved on. The swarm tried to respond, but their predictable tactics could not catch the fast-moving human ships. Every time the swarm concentrated forces to protect a command node, the humans simply attacked a different one. Lieutenant June worked his station with fierce concentration. Suddenly he looked up. Sir, the Vrelnath defense fleet is trying to support our attacks. They are taking heavy damage. One of their ships is about to be destroyed. Which ship? Fighter carrier Dawn's Light. She has launched all her fighters, but the carrier itself is surrounded. Bora's breath caught. Dawn's Light. Her daughter was serving on that ship. Pilot Bora, fresh from academy, flying her first real combat mission. Tay did not hesitate. Lieutenant, take Fighter Squadron Gamma and support that carrier. Get those pilots home, yes, sir. Launching now. June left the bridge at a run. Minutes later, Bora saw human fighters launch from the flagship's hangar. They were small, fast, and moved with incredible agility. They reached Dawn's Light just as swarm vessels closed in for the kill. The human fighters tore into the swarm ships with concentrated fire. Their weapons were different from anything Bora had seen. Plasma cannons that burned through armor, missiles that tracked targets with perfect accuracy, electronic countermeasures that blinded swarm sensors. On the communication channel, Bora heard her daughter's voice. Human fighters, this is Vrelnath, Pilot Bora. Thank you for the assist. Dawn's Light is evacuating, but we still have fighters in the combat zone. Lieutenant June's voice came back, calm despite the chaos. Copy that, Pilot Bora. Form up on my wing. We are going hunting together. Captain Bora watched the tactical display as human and Vrelnath fighters worked together. June flew with precise aggression, destroying swarm ships while protecting the less experienced Vrelnath pilots. Her daughter stayed close to him, learning and adapting to human combat techniques. Across the battlefield, the tide was turning. 13 command nodes destroyed. The swarm's perfect coordination was breaking down. Entire sections of their fleet were disabled or confused. The remaining Vrelnath ships rallied, attacking with renewed hope. Colonel Tay studied the tactical display with satisfaction. All ships, final phase. Concentrate fire on the central harvester group. Drive them away from the planet. Show them this world is defended. The human fleet reformed, this time gathering their strength into a massive hammer blow. They struck the heart of the swarm formation. Destroying harvester vessels by the dozens, the swarm finally broke. The remaining ships began retreating, jumping to hyperspace in chaotic groups. Victory, but the battlefield was filled with debris. Human ships damaged, Vrelnath vessels destroyed. On the planet below, cities were scarred from orbital bombardment. The cost had been terrible. Tay walked through the medical bay, visiting every wounded human and Vrelnath soldier. He spoke to each one, thanking them for their courage. Bora followed him, seeing a side of the colonel she had not expected. He cared deeply about his people, about all people. In one bed, Lieutenant June lay with burns covering his left arm. He had stayed in the fight until every Vrelnath fighter was safe, taking damage to protect others. Pilot Bora, Captain Bora's daughter, sat beside his bed. Her eyes were red from crying. He saved my life. 3 times. When I made mistakes, when I was too slow, he was there. He could have abandoned us and saved himself, but he didn't. I don't understand. Why would he risk so much for people he just met? Colonel Tay knelt beside the bed, meeting the young pilot's eyes. Because that is what it means to be human. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We fight for those who cannot fight. Your species called us Deathworlders and monsters, but we are something else. We are guardians, and we do not abandon our own. Captain Bora felt tears running down her face. She had been so afraid of these humans, afraid of their weapons, their violence, their power, but now she understood. The Deathworlders were dangerous because they cared too much, not too little. They would fight with everything they had to protect innocent lives. Later, Tay called Captain Bora to the command center. His expression was serious. Captain, we have received intelligence from our scouts. The swarm we fought here was only an advance force. The main swarm, the real threat, is moving toward the core systems of the Galactic Council. It is 1,000 times larger than what we face today. Bora felt her hope crumble. Then we are doomed. If this small force required your entire fleet, how can we possibly stop something 1,000 times larger? Tay shook his head. We are not doomed. But we cannot do this alone. We need the Galactic Council to stop being afraid and start fighting. We need every species, every ship, every soldier. And we need them to trust human leadership. Can you help me convince them? Bora looked at the wounded soldiers in the medical bay, humans and Vrelnath side by side. She thought about her daughter flying alongside Lieutenant June. She thought about Tay visiting every wounded soldier personally. Yes, Colonel, I will help you. The Council needs to see what I have seen. You are not monsters. You are exactly what the galaxy needs. Together they prepared to return to Council space and face the most difficult battle yet. Not against machines, but against fear and prejudice. The Sol system appeared on the ship's view screen like a memory from a nightmare. Captain Bora stood on the bridge, her hands gripping the rail so tight her knuckles turned white. Behind her, Ambassador Thel tried to look calm, but her breathing was fast and shallow. The crew members whispered nervously to each other. At the center of the system, a yellow star burned bright. 8 planets orbited around it, and the 3rd planet from the sun was Earth. Even from this distance, Bora could see the blue and white colors that marked water and clouds. It looked beautiful, peaceful, nothing like the nightmare world the reports described. The ship's sensors began screaming warnings. Defense platforms, dozens of them, appeared on the tactical display. Weapons locked onto their vessel. A human voice came through the communication system, speaking in clear galactic standard language. Unknown vessel, This is Earth Defense Station 7. You have entered restricted space. State your identity and purpose immediately. Thel stepped forward, activating the communication channel with trembling hands. This is Ambassador Thel of the Vrelnath people, representing the Galactic Council. We come in peace and request permission to approach Earth. We seek to speak with your leaders about a matter of urgent importance. There was a long pause. Bora watched the weapon systems on the defense platforms. They remained locked on target. If the humans decided to fire, the diplomatic ship would be destroyed in seconds. Finally, the voice returned. Ambassador Thel, we acknowledge your diplomatic status. I am Commander Day of Earth Space Defense. You will power down all weapon systems and follow the navigation beacon to Landing Zone 3 in Seoul. Any deviation from the flight path will be considered hostile action. Welcome to Earth. The weapons locks disappeared. A green navigation path appeared on their display. Bora let out a breath she did not know she was holding. The crew looked at each other in surprise. They had expected threats, not a welcome. As they followed the beacon toward Earth, Bora studied the planet below. Cities covered vast areas of the continents. Lights sparkled in the darkness where night had fallen. Ships moved through orbit, both military and civilian. Everything looked organized, efficient, and frighteningly advanced. They landed at the designated zone. The ship's doors opened and warm air rushed in. The gravity felt slightly heavier than their homeworld, making each step require more effort. Outside, a group of humans waited. Thel walked down the ramp first, with Bora close behind. The humans were shorter than most species in the Council, but they stood with confidence that made them seem larger. Their eyes were forward-facing like predators. Their faces showed intelligence and calculation. One human stepped forward, a woman with dark hair and kind eyes. She wore simple professional clothing, not a military uniform. She smiled, though Bora noticed it did not quite reach her eyes. Ambassador Thel, Captain Bora, welcome to Earth. I am Director Hana of the Diplomatic Corps. Please, follow me. We have much to discuss. They were led through the landing facility into a building that mixed natural materials with advanced technology. Wood and stone alongside holographic displays and automated systems. Humans moved through the corridors with purpose, barely glancing at the alien visitors. Some showed curiosity, but not fear or hostility. Director Hana took them to a meeting room with large windows overlooking the city. Seoul stretched out below them, a massive urban center filled with millions of humans. Hana gestured to comfortable chairs and offered them drinks. Tea, she called it, a human custom. Thel sipped the warm liquid politely, then began speaking. Director Hana, I will not waste your time with pleasantries. The Galactic Council needs your help. A machine race called the Krill Swarm is destroying our worlds. They have consumed 12 Vrelnath colonies. Millions are dead. Our military forces cannot stop them. No one's forces can stop them. You are our last hope. Hana listened without interrupting. Her expression remained calm, but her eyes showed deep thought. When Thel finished, Hana was quiet for a long moment. I appreciate your honesty, Ambassador. You have come a long way to a world your people fear. To ask for help from a species you labeled as dangerous, that shows great courage and great desperation. Tell me, why should humanity help the council that quarantined us, that warned every species to stay away from Earth, that called us barbarians and monsters? Thel met her eyes directly. Because despite what the council thinks of you, I believe humans understand what it means to fight for survival. Your world tried to kill you at every turn and you survived. You built cities, created art, developed technology, all while living on a planet that most species would consider hell. You know what it means to face impossible odds. The Vrelnath people are dying, Director Hana. Children, families, entire worlds. If you can help us and choose not to, then perhaps the Council was right about humanity. But I do not believe that. I believe you are better than our fears. Hana's expression softened slightly. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. You are correct about one thing, Ambassador. Humanity knows what it means to fight for survival. Every human alive today is descended from survivors. We learned to adapt, to overcome, to never give up. But we also learned something else. We learned that strength without purpose is just violence. Earth was isolated for 30 years. 30 years to think about who we are and who we want to be. We decided we want to be protectors, not conquerors. She turned back to them. I need to introduce you to someone. Hana pressed a button on her desk. A door opened and a man entered. He was tall for a human with short gray hair and eyes that had seen many battles. He wore a military uniform with symbols that marked him as high-ranking. His movements were controlled and precise. This is Colonel Tay, commander of Earth's Rapid Response Fleet. Colonel Tay nodded respectfully to them, then sat down. His voice was deep and calm. Ambassador, Captain, I have reviewed the data you transmitted about the Krill swarm. I have studied their tactics, their technology, their methods. They are dangerous, but they have weaknesses. They rely on overwhelming numbers and centralized command structures. They follow predictable patterns. These are things we can exploit. Bora spoke for the first time, her voice filled with doubt. With respect, Colonel, we have tried everything. The Vrelnath fleet was destroyed. The Hevron battle groups were consumed. The Mechanical Union's electronic warfare failed. How can you succeed where everyone else failed? Tay looked at her with understanding, not anger, because everyone else fought the way they always fight. They used standard tactics, standard weapons, standard thinking. Humans do not fight like other species. We adapt, we improvise. We find the enemy's weakness and attack it without mercy. The swarm has never faced an enemy like us. He stood and activated a holographic display. Images of human warships appeared in the air. We have been preparing for this day. Not specifically for the swarm, but for any threat that might come. Our ships are designed for flexibility. Our weapons include kinetic missiles, electronic warfare systems, plasma cannons, and directed energy weapons. Our soldiers train in every environment, every scenario. We do not have the largest fleet in the galaxy, but we have the most prepared one. Thel felt hope rising in her chest for the first time in months. Then you will help us? Colonel Tay looked at Director Hana. She nodded. He turned back to the aliens. If humanity agrees to help, we do not do anything halfway. We will commit fully, but I need to be clear about something. When humans fight, we fight to win. We will use every weapon, every tactic, every advantage we have. Some of what you see may frighten you, but everything we do will be to protect innocent lives. Can you accept that? Bora and Thel looked at each other. They thought about their destroyed worlds, their dead families, the children who would never grow up. They thought about the swarm moving closer to more populated systems. They nodded. We can accept that. We accept anything that stops the killing. Then we have an agreement. I will need 6 hours to prepare the fleet. Ambassador, you should rest. Captain Bora, if you wish, you may observe our launch procedures. It will give you an idea of what human military operations look like. 6 hours later, Bora stood in an observation room overlooking the orbital shipyards. What she saw took her breath away. 3 battle groups, dozens of ships moving with perfect coordination. Each vessel was different, specialized for specific roles. Carriers holding fighter squadrons, destroyers bristling with weapons, electronic warfare ships covered in sensor arrays, supply ships ready to support extended operations. The ships moved out of orbit in formation. Bora watched them align for the jump to hyperspace. In that moment, she realized what they had done. They had not asked the Deathworlders for help. They had unleashed them. She just hoped they had pointed the monsters in the right direction. The emergency meeting room of the Galactic Council was filled with worried voices. Representatives from 40 different species sat around the massive circular table. Their translators buzzed and chirped, turning alien languages into something everyone could understand. But today, no translation was needed to see the fear on every face. Ambassador Thel stood at the center of the room. She was a Vrelnath, with soft blue skin and large eyes that showed every emotion. Right now, those eyes were filled with tears. On the holographic display behind her, images of destroyed worlds floated in space. Entire planets reduced to empty rocks. Cities that once held billions now turned to dust. The Krill swarm had come without warning. They were not a living species, but machines built long ago by creators no one remembered. The swarm moved from system to system, breaking apart planets and taking everything useful. Metal, water, minerals, even the atmosphere. They left nothing behind except silence. 12 Vrelnath colonies had fallen in 3 months. Millions of her people were dead. The Vrelnath defense fleet had tried to fight back, but it was like throwing stones at a metal wall. The swarm just kept coming, endless and unstoppable. Council Speaker Meln, an old reptilian diplomat with scales that had turned gray with age, raised his hand for silence. The room quieted. His voice was tired when he spoke. We have heard your request, Ambassador Thel. The Council sympathizes with the Vrelnath people. But we must be realistic. None of our military forces can stop the swarm. We have tried. The Hevron Empire sent 3 battle groups. Only 1 ship returned. The Mechanical Union attempted electronic warfare. Their entire fleet was consumed. What more can we do? Thel looked around the room, searching for hope in the faces of her fellow diplomats. She found only fear and helplessness. Her hands trembled as she touched the control panel. A new image appeared on the display. A blue and green planet covered in clouds. The room fell completely silent. There is one option we have not considered. One species with the military strength to fight the swarm. A council member from the bird-like Eric species let out a shocked chirp. Several others began talking at once. Speaker Meln hit his desk, demanding order. His eyes were wide with disbelief. You cannot be serious, Ambassador. You are speaking of the quarantined world. The Deathworlders. I am completely serious. Earth, humanity, they are our last hope. The reaction was immediate and loud. Half the council members stood, shouting their objections. The other half sat in shocked silence. Thel waited for the noise to die down before continuing. I know what you all think of them. I have read the reports from First Contact. Yes, they come from a death world. Yes, their planet is filled with dangers that would kill most of us within hours. Extreme weather, deadly animals, diseases, natural disasters. And yes, humans evolved to survive all of it. But that is exactly why we need them. A Hevron ambassador named Kel stood up. He was tall and elegant, with smooth golden skin and a voice full of authority. His expression showed disgust. Have you forgotten what happened at First Contact? Our diplomatic ship approached their world with peaceful intentions. Their response was to lock weapons on us and demand we stay away from their planet. When our security escort tried to defend the diplomats, the humans destroyed 2 of our ships in less than a minute. 2 military vessels gone. They showed no mercy, no hesitation. They are violent barbarians. Thel nodded slowly. She had expected this argument. I have read those reports carefully, Ambassador Kel. Our ships entered their space without permission. We ignored their warnings. Our security escort powered up weapons near their homeworld. From the human perspective, we were invaders. They defended their planet. Can we truly blame them for that? Another council member spoke up, her voice shaking with fear. They have weapons we do not understand. Kinetic missiles that move at impossible speeds. Electronic warfare systems that shut down our computers. Chemical weapons that could wipe out entire populations. And their soldiers are trained from childhood to fight. What happens if we bring them into council space and they decide to conquer us instead of helping us? Thel felt frustration rising in her chest. She understood their fears. She shared many of them. But watching her people die while the council did nothing was worse than any risk. Then we will die. Just like my people are dying right now. The swarm will not stop with the Vrelnath worlds. They are moving toward council space. In 6 months, maybe less, they will reach the core systems. Billions will die. Our entire civilization will end. The humans may be dangerous, but the swarm is certain death. I would rather take a chance with the Deathworlders than watch everything we built turn to dust. The room fell silent again. Everyone knew she was right. The swarm would not negotiate. It would not stop. It would consume everything in its path until nothing remained. Speaker Melon looked around the room, studying each face. Finally, he spoke. This decision is too important for one voice. We will vote. All in favor of sending a diplomatic mission to Earth to request military assistance? Hands, claws, and tentacles rose slowly around the room. Thel held her breath, counting. 21 in favor. The speaker called for those against. 19 raised their appendages. It was the smallest possible majority, but it was enough. The motion passes. Ambassador Thel, you will lead the mission to Earth. Choose your team carefully. We are trusting you with the future of the galaxy. Thel bowed her head in respect, but inside she felt only cold fear. She had gotten what she asked for, but now she had to face the consequences. She had to travel to a death world and ask monsters for help. After the meeting ended, Thel walked through the empty corridors of the council building. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. She found Captain Bora waiting for her outside. Bora was also Vrelnath, but where Thel was a diplomat, Bora was a soldier. She had fought the swarm and survived when most of her fleet did not. I heard the vote passed. When do we leave? Tomorrow morning. We will take the fastest ship available. The swarm destroyed another colony this morning. We are running out of time. Bora nodded, but her hands were clenched tight. Thel could see the fear in her eyes. Are you afraid, Captain? Yes. I have fought machines that destroy planets without emotion, but the humans terrify me more. At least I understand what the swarm wants. It wants resources. The humans are unpredictable, violent, dangerous in ways I cannot calculate. Thel put a hand on Bora's shoulder. Then we face our fear together. For our people, for everyone who still lives. The next morning, their ship launched from the council station. It was a small diplomatic vessel, fast but lightly armed. It would take them 2 weeks to reach the Sol system where Earth waited. 2 weeks to prepare for meeting the most dangerous species in known space. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, Thel stood at the window, watching the stars stretch into lines of light. Somewhere ahead, in a system marked as forbidden on every galactic map, the Deathworlders waited. She wondered what they would find when they arrived. She wondered if they would survive the meeting. Most of all, she wondered if asking humanity for help would save the galaxy or doom it to something even worse than the swarm.